Hey folks, and welcome back to The Absolute Yin. I know I haven't made a video in English for quite a while now, and I thought this time, for a change, that it would be nice to also try and target my English-speaking audience and start creating content that most people can understand and hopefully relate to, unlike the content I often publish in Hebrew. And today's topic is a very important and interesting topic in my life and in my work as well. And it's about the link between the Pythagorean discoveries and the work of one of my favorite philosophers and occultists out there, whose name is Georgy Ivanovich Gurdjieff, as well as his student Piotr Damianovich Uspensky. Some of you may know, last year I started a reading challenge of a collection of over 200 books related to different ancient occulted topics, from Hermeticism to chaos magic, symbology, Freemasonry, alchemy, Rosicrucianism, and I managed to maintain some consistency throughout the first 10 to 12 books until I started a new job, and then my reading frequency just slowly started declining. However, this journey pulled me unintentionally into the Pythagorean tradition, which I have to admit completely blew my mind to pieces. So that's the thing, right? The Pythagorean tradition is far more than what they teach you at school about triangles. And in fact, the only thing I can remember from my early childhood that I was taught about Pythagoras was the Pythagoras theorem with regards to triangle. And to be completely honest, I think his trigonometry discoveries were perhaps his least interesting ones, just in my opinion. I'm not saying the least important, but the least interesting. So I suspect a few of you already know about my interest and my work revolving around the Law of Octaves, my septagram model, and their direct link to Gurdjieff and to Uspensky's work. In the context of my work, my book, my training methodology, I wanted to share something very interesting I came across as I was reading about the first and perhaps the greatest Greek philosopher and scientist of all times. And it all starts from something called the Pythagoras Harmonics experiment, which might not seem directly related at first, but this is the baseline of what Gurdjieff would later call the Law of Octaves, and more specifically, the principle of discontinuity within the octave. So around the 6th century BCE, Pythagoras, who was a mathematician, a philosopher, a mystic, and an occultist, noticed an interesting connection between the length of a string and the sound it produced. And in this very famous experiment, he tested different strings of different lengths on some wooden instrument using what you would call natural ratios, like 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and so on and so on. And he discovered that the tones he created using such ratios had or produced harmonious sounds, whatever that means. So, for example, if we test a 2-to-1 ratio, we can say that the string that is half the length produces a tone 1 octave higher. That's called a 2-to-1 ratio. I take a string of 10 centimeters that produces the sound of 220 hertz, let's say, and I cut it short by 5 centimeters, and its pitch is gonna go from 220 to 440. That's a brief example. Obviously, it's not just about the length. There are other factors as well. But in a nutshell, for the non-musicians among you, a 3-to-2 ratio would produce a perfect fifth. That's when one note vibrates 1.5 times faster than the lower one. And similarly, a 4-to-3 ratio would give you a perfect fourth. That's when the higher note vibrates 1 1/3 times faster. Now, those sounds are considered harmonic, and our ears can intuitively feel it, although it's very hard to explain rationally what is considered harmonic. I consider it a very intuitive thing, but if you know the answer, please leave a comment. I am very curious to hear the logical, mathematical explanation behind what is harmonic and what is not. But if you are a musician, you probably know that there are three factors, or maybe the right word is variables, that determine the pitch of a string. And one of them is the tension in the string, as you stretch it or just let it shrink back to its original length. And the best example is guitar strings. The second one is the mass of the string. And the third one was the length. Pythagoras' experiment only related to the length, if my memory isn't betraying me now. Now, the interesting conclusion of this experiment was that simple numerical ratios like 2-to-1 or 3-to-2 or 4-to-3 generated harmonious sounds, whatever that means objectively. Pythagoras believed that the entire universe was built upon or based on these ratios. It was referred to as the music of the spheres, which is an infinite harmony that can be expressed and explained mathematically. He proposed the idea that celestial bodies like the sun, the moon, the planets emit inaudible harmonious sounds based on their orbital movement and proportional distances. He was basically the first person to understand and to uncover the link between math and music. And some even claim he encoded those principles in the traditional heptatonic, diatonic musical scale. I don't think it's accurate, though. Pythagoras did not invent or encode the modern diatonic scale, the seven-tone scale like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, at least not in the way we understand it today. But he did reveal the numerical principles that laid the foundation for the establishment of the heptatonic scale, the 7 pitches per octave composed of 12 semitones scale. You see it very clearly on the piano keyboard, and in this particular scale from Do to Si, the gaps between the sounds are of 1 tone between Do and Re, 1 tone between Re and Mi, then a semitone between Mi and Fa, another 1 tone between Fa and Sol, between Sol and La, and between La and Si. And then another semitone between Si and the Do of the next octave. And those semitones are extremely important in Gurdjieff's principle of discontinuity, which I will explain shortly. So we understand that the diatonic scale consisting of Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si is not structured evenly, right? Most sounds are separated by whole tones, but then we have 2 of them which are separated by semitones. So there are 2 spots on the octave where the harmonic flow is interrupted and where it experiences what we call a vibrational retardation. So almost 2,500 years later, Gurdjieff, together with his student Uspensky, brought this law of octaves back to life, but Gurdjieff looked at it from a different perspective. Not from a musical perspective, but from a universal perspective. It was no longer a musical theory. He really took it to the next level and taught it as a cosmological model and a metaphysical law. I never saw the relation between Gurdjieff's work and Pythagoras until I started reading about Pythagoras, and later realizing that Gurdjieff's work was somewhat an expansion or maybe even a tribute to Pythagoras' discoveries. So imagine this, it's the beginning of the 20th century, and Gurdjieff claims that every process in the universe develops according to the law of octaves, not in a straight and continuous line, but rather with 2 points of slowing, breaking, deviation, or retardation. There are no straight lines in nature, everything curves, right? Everything changes, everything reaches some point of exhaustion. And the reason for that is the law of octaves and its principle of discontinuity. Those are the 2 potential failure points where a process could either crash or change its course. And he used the structure of the diatonic scale with its 2 half steps to draw a few conclusions. The first one was that every process can be divided into 7 steps. or 7 stages. The second one was that there are 2 specific points in the very schema of each process, in its natural topology, where the process is more prone to failure and where its original momentum weakens and is more likely to fade or to break. And in the third one, he claimed that these 2 weak points can be overcome with either conscious effort from within or by external forces that add energy to the process. I could give you a simple example to illustrate this. You start a new project with great excitement. That's the first tone. Then you invest energy into the process to achieve your goal, whatever it is. So you progress to the next tone on your octave. Then you reach the stage between mi and fa, yeah? And there you experience an inner obstacle. It can be fatigue, exhaustion, loss of motivation. Maybe you start doubting yourself because you don't see immediate results. You develop fears, and you need to push harder to overcome these obstacles. If you don't invest more conscious energy at that stage, or alternatively receive help from the outside, the process may fail and you might give up or just decide to pursue a different path, which is completely unrelated to your project originally. Now, it's very important to understand that this structure is claimed to apply in pretty much everything in life, both on the macrocosmic level, like astrodynamics and even human society to some extent, and in the microcosmic processes, such as increase and decline of an electron's frequency. So on a macrocosmic level, this schema can explain different social phenomena, and I'll give one example. For example, a religion can start to move in one direction and then turns into its extreme opposite. It's called a loop, okay? Like the moral starting point of Christianity, which was all about love and compassion and forgiveness, and that's how we know Christianity today. However, a few hundreds of years later, it already turned into the very opposite of its base philosophy through all sorts of religious wars, crusades, the Inquisition, or the witch trials in Europe, where nearly 60,000 people were mercilessly burned at the stake for things like beliefs or spiritual practices. I often like to use feminism as another social example where you can clearly see that throughout history, recent history, the first and second waves were pretty justified and focused on women's rights, while the third wave seems to be more focused on men hatred, yet it still calls itself feminism. On the micro level, the same things happen in nature, yeah? Many processes don't move smoothly from start to finish. They move forward, then they slow down, they hit some limit, and then they either break or change form. Take water as a simple example. You can keep heating it and nothing really changes, it's still water, and then suddenly at a very specific point, it just flips, it becomes steam. The process cannot continue the same way anymore. Either enough energy is added and it crosses that threshold, or it stays stuck in the same composition. There is no gradual transition and no halfway state, right? Nature itself is built with these stopping points. Progress moves in steps, not straight lines. And without extra energy at the right moment, the movement either collapses or turns into something completely different. Based on this, according to Gurdjieff, the diatonic musical scale is no longer just a musical structure, but a comprehensive model for psychological, biological, spiritual, and even economic or societal development. I want to share my views on this, and this is also how I like to present my work. Pythagoras saw harmony in nature and in music as something predetermined. Yeah, the world is a concert of numbers, music and math. But Gurdjieff saw it differently. He saw harmony as a task, as a mission. Every step requires conscious effort to maintain a straight direction or the same momentum. The octave is a process. Ascending octaves are called evolution, descending octaves are called creation. So let me know your thoughts. Is the law of octaves just an acoustic phenomenon? Is it a reflection of a deeper law of nature? Does it really apply on consciousness and living beings? Let me know what you think. Tell me how you see this law applying in your lives. If you do, I am genuinely eager to hear about such stories. So let's have a conversation in the comments. And before we wrap up, I wanted to recommend a few resources that you could kick off from if you're interested in the topic. The first one is definitely In Search of the Miraculous by Ouspensky. The second one is The Life of Pythagoras by Jamblichus. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And the third one, well, I found dozens of great videos on YouTube introducing all the Pythagorean philosophy, and one of them is called Behind the Math and Myth, and this one you should definitely check it out. And that's it. I look forward to reading your comments. In the meantime, enjoy your day. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you like old-fashioned wisdom, philosophy, mysticism, and of course martial arts. If you would like to support my project, then go to www.theabsolutein.com and you can make a small donation or purchase the book Tales from the Mountain once it becomes available in English, or just hit the like button. It's free. Take care. See you soon.